Well, good afternoon, and welcome back to the show, I guess you'd call it. So the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled on the OSHA emergency temporary standard mandate. That ruling came out on Friday. So I've asked Sal Gangemi of Merthyr Carolina to kind of come back in and take off where we left off last week on his thoughts on the mandate. So Sal, take it away. What do you think?
Sure. Sure. Well, first let me say this, that I probably would not have come back if I had been wrong in my prediction, but now I feel it's a lot more easier. I feel much more comfortable coming back.
So, so
Yeah,
your prediction was that it was going to be stricken by the
yeah,
Supreme Court. Okay,
yes,
got it.
I'm more sure about it now than I was back then. But yes, that was my prediction. And again, it has nothing to do with whether or not the court is pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. This really was based on a very technical issue. Basically, the court said that although Congress gave OSHA, okay, in the past, the power to regulate occupational dangers, hazards, and safety, Congress has not given the agency the power to regulate the public health more broadly. All right, and essentially that's what was happening here, because the president had issued the vaccine or test mandate, not because the president was necessarily or specifically concerned with workplace hazards, but it was because the president or the administration was looking to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And what easier way to do this than to have their employers their employers do the heavy lifting. Okay, so essentially, the court came down and said, no, you really can't do it this way. The court did say it would have probably been okay, although there's some differences there in opinion, but it probably would have been okay if the court, if the mandate had been directed towards, or the ETS had been directed towards a specific industry that has a higher incidence of COVID-19 hazards or deaths. Now, like healthcare, there's an ETS out there for healthcare. There's also other agencies that require healthcare employees to be vaccinated. You know, something like that, where they could demonstrate a high risk. Then you could say, okay, this is really about protecting employees in the workplace. This one was sort of like it was like a blunt, you know, it was like a dropping an anvil on an ant, right?
Got it.
It wasn't necessary.
Got it. So with that said, so what do you think now that it's stricken down for businesses with over 100 employees? What do you think the reaction is going to be, A, from businesses and then employees, both vaxxed and unvaxxed, if you can
Oh,
kind of just
yeah,
opine there?
sure. Well, I will say this. I read that General Electric actually was one of the first major companies to suspend its implementation of the vaccine or test mandate. Okay, and that's a pretty big deal, that a company as big as General Electric would suspend it. And what are other employers going to do? I think a lot of other employers may likewise suspend it. You know, from the employer standpoint, this mandate was asking a lot of them, particularly where people or employees were ready to quit, right, for rather than be vaccinated. Okay, the testing option was really burdensome for employers, particularly the ones that are maybe, you know, more than 100, but less than, let's say, 500 employees, because of the cost associated with proctoring those tests. Now, conversely, what are some employees are going to be thrilled about this, okay, about the fact that this is no longer a requirement. But there are going to be employees who may apply pressure to their employers to continue to maintain the mandate or continue to maintain the policy. Now, one thing that I think some employers are going to face, because I remember dealing this with specifically a few months back, is that, once the mandate was going to be reality, employers said, okay, good. Now we're on an equal playing field with all these other companies, right? So if an employee doesn't want to go through this process with us, they can't just hop to another employer because the same mandate exists there, right? But now it's going to have to be a corporate decision as to whether or not to continue these things and face the risk of having employees resign over it one way or the other.
Got it. And now just kind of the final question, in your opinion, again, of course, I consider it the Hatfields and McCoys, right? It's the vax versus the unvax, right? And one side is happy and one side is angry. So, or it could have been reversed, right? So we could start to see employees leaving because the employer is not mandating vaccines, where maybe the company down the street is, and they want to be in that kind of environment. Do you sense any sort of labor law, I don't know, for lack of better terms, discrimination, harassment, that sort of hostile work environment popping up because of this? Because one side's going to be at each other's throats.
Look, I think that was probably something that was already there, right? Before the Supreme Court's decision. You see it every day. You see people battling each other over their divergent views, and it's possible that people may try to bring claims. What I do think we're going to see an increase of is employee complaints to OSHA. All right. Why do I say that? Even though the ETS doesn't exist anymore. OSHA has a general obligation under its general duty clause to ensure that employers maintain a workplace free from hazards. And they've made it clear since the Supreme Court's decision that they're going to continue to rely on that very vague, ambiguous standard to hold employers responsible. And so I do think that you're going to see an increase in just general workplace complaints on this stuff to OSHA.
So having a good OSHA reporting policy and tracking of what's going on, because if there's more if there's more complaints, you're going to want to have more backup of what you have and have not been doing.
That's exactly right. And even though you don't have to mandate vaccines, you can. And secondly, this should not be taken as a signal that employers can now abandon whatever safety precautions they were taking in the first place. All right, because OSHA can still come after you if you're being reckless and careless.
That's a great point. And I think a great point to stop. And for those that listen to this, this doesn't mean that we're going back to 2019 in the way our workplace was structured. We're still continuing on, some of the, the various things that we've been doing with spacing and all those sorts of things and masking, et cetera. So, Sal, I really appreciate you and appreciate you doing this. For those that have OSHA concerns, Sal is an amazing resource at Merthyr Carlina. I encourage you to reach out to him, to find him, and we're going to continue to bring him back in as we go along on this and other labor topics that people are interested in. So, Sal, again, I thank you. Have a great day, and I'll chat with you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye, Rick.